Carl here from Metal Wani, and today I am joined by one of my favourite personalities to talk music with. Whether it's an interview or just shooting the breeze, he always winds up being one of my favourite conversations of the year. I am beyond stoked to catch up once again with none other than Myles Kennedy of Alter Bridge. Myles, it's great to see your face, my friend. Thanks for hanging out this evening.
Hey man, thanks for having me, and it's great to see you again as well. Really appreciate your time.
Always. And look, I got to bring you up to speed on something, because the last time we hung out together, you shared a wonderful story with me about how you and your wife had adopted the neighborhood feral cat and that you called him Azrael. And I made you a promise that I would incorporate Azrael Kennedy somewhere within the headline of our next interview. And I'm pleased to tell you that I did exactly that, my friend. So let me start by simply asking, how are you? How's life been treating you, brother?
Oh, really great, actually. I've kind of powered down for the last, month or so since I did a tour in June, did the festival run with the solo band, and so it's been nice to just kind of reconnect here at home.
Good. It's been wonderful. Glad to hear, man. Glad to hear. And so we're here this evening to talk about the new Alter Bridge album that looms just over the horizon. Pawns and Kings comes out on October 14th, and man, what a gift this album is. It's a triumph. I think fans are going to be stoked, and congratulations to you and the guys, first of all, on producing such a great record.
Thank you very much. Wow, those are that's very nice.
It's true, man, and the thing is when I first listened to the record, I was immediately transported to a place that honestly took me a minute to put my finger on, and it was that you've always been a heavy band to a certain degree, but I realized what was jarring me this time was that it felt like all the restlessness, confusion and frustration of the last few years was like right at the forefront. And obviously the last couple of years have been incredibly challenging on the human spirit, being forced to try and practice stillness while all variants of chaos ensue around us. But for someone like yourself, someone who absorbs and transcribes the thoughts, feelings and experiences of the human condition, I wonder if this is perhaps what I'm hearing on Pawns and Kings. Is it a fair assessment, or am I completely off the mark here?
No, I think to a degree you're right. Mm-hmm. Always trying to keep the antenna up and take what's going on around me and around us, and try and kind of spit it back out in song. But yeah, these are interesting times, and I think for me the hard part is not to make it so that it ends up being dated. Mm-hmm. You know, there are things that are pertaining to the world right now, but my hope is that in 10 years you'll listen to the record and the way the poetry is manifested in the songs, it's still ambiguous enough to where it'll resonate to some degree. But trying to capture, I think, the authentic emotional intensity is that's what's key for me anyways. The songs come from a real place, and maybe that's what you're picking up on, and that's a good thing.
I think you nailed that. And one of the things that interested me is I read that the process for you guys used to be that like you and Mark would write parts almost semi-independently and then combine those respective parts later on, but more recently instead you've been kind of like demoing tracks and sending them back and forth, shifting the way you kind of collaborate and build this music. And I'm curious if this was perhaps just a natural shift after so many years, or looking at it in hindsight, is there an element to some degree where it's also about nurturing the relationship or your relationship with songwriters, that maybe it was healthy for you guys to keep the wheel turning by touching base creatively in a slightly different way?
Yeah, I mean, some of it was born out of necessity. I think because we live on opposite sides of the country, mm-hmm. And we can't just, hey, I got an idea, come on over. And one could argue, well, you can use technology, you can still Zoom, but I think for me, what's hard is that I feel like I'm most effective once I'm in the once there's an idea, the genesis of an idea. I'm learning as time goes on, it's better if I go ahead and just chase as much of it down as I can and then get away from it. And so I think that, we're still utilizing the aspect that we've always tried to integrate, which both Mark and I will have some hand in every song to some degree. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'm not walking with a song. It's completely done, and there's no room for his input or somebody else's input, because I feel like that's really important. I feel like then I don't know. That's just I try to be respectful of that, and I think he does the same thing. But yeah, the process has changed. It used to be we were way more into like sitting down and going through, well, you have a verse that goes with this chorus, and now it's more like I'll come in with a shell, and it's like, well, here's an intro, riff, verse, chorus. Do you have a middle eight that would work well with this, or do you have a whatever? And that seems to be working well at this point. And it's the same thing with him, where he'll come in with he'll come in with a really great musical composition, and then I'll come up with a melody and a lyric for it. Sometimes he'll have a melodic idea. And he said, well, what do you try this? And so, it varies on the song, but I think that's what keeps it kind of exciting. And it's not just like somebody's just walking, well, here's your song, I programmed all your parts. Nobody wants that. They want to be able to put their input in.
Absolutely, because I read that, normally Mark would be regarded as, say, the heavier player, the one to bring those kind of riffs, where you would be the melodic, melancholic counterpart. But that's been kind of flipped a little bit, much to your producer's expectations, especially on Pawns and Kings. So I wonder, does that analysis resonate with you? Do you feel that also?
Yeah, I think to a degree. I mean, the interesting thing is it's the heavy aspect has always kind of been there with me, just like the melancholy thing has also been there with Mark. It's always they're peppered throughout our records throughout our career. But I think with this one in particular, and I don't know why that is. I've just felt inspired more with more heavy concepts. I have no idea why. And but he still has plenty, and he still has the thing that he is known for. So it's all still there. I think it's just a matter of where the there's a certain where the threshold is.
Gotcha.
There's a different balance than on previous records.
I love that, and that's why I've been dying to ask you that. And I remember listening to you speak at one point where you described the writing you do with, say, Slash as storytelling, while the writing you do with Alter Bridge is more like an assembly of journal entries. And the dichotomy of this kind of fascinates me, because I always feel when I read your words that there are sort of two voices collaborating on them. There's the writer and the man, if you will. And I find the final lyric is those two voices coming together, which got me wondering, when it comes to Pawns and Kings and the overarching arc of the narrative here, did it take a while to establish some harmony between you as a person experiencing these things and you as a lyricist translating them into songs?
Wow, that's really beautiful the way you articulated that. I think that, it's interesting because that's I've never thought about that. There is the storytelling element, and then there's also the personal element. But it's kind of like, I think for me to convey something vocally, I have to have some sort of understanding of what I'm singing, and so there's always an element of truth in a lyric, even if it's from a different perspective. And there's always some way of putting this in there. And Pawns and Kings, the title track, that's an interesting song because it's kind of a, David and Goliath, concept in a way, where no matter how big whatever is you're up against seems, the magnitude of it, it's that decision to go against it and overcome. And I think that we've all been in those situations. We've all been in those situations where the landscape in front of us seems so incredibly overwhelming and scary, and the gravity of it seems like there's no way I can take this on. But I think we've all been in situations where we've surprised ourselves. Hopefully, I hope that. I know I have, and I'm still working on. I'm still trying to find things that I personally can overcome. I'm as many years as I've been on the planet, there's still plenty of things I'm trying to master within this in particular.
Yeah.
For me, that's still the the final frontier, is harnessing this brain and anxiety and all fears and insecurities, and I'm that's my Goliath. That's what I'm still up against.
That is a beautifully articulated answer also. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, man. And because I've been following Alter Bridge. My journey with you guys started in 2007, I think, with Blackbird, when I was 15, and I thought I knew your music pretty well, and then Pawns and Kings flipped that for me. I was like, okay, because this record feels like riding a wave for me in terms of arrangement and musicality, from the songs themselves to the order they appear in on the record. It feels very purposeful and nurtured by you guys. I kind of feel like I'm being surrounded by these songs as they capture certain things and moments and share these thoughts. And for me, not to spoil it for fans, but songs like Holiday and Fable of the Silent Sun are really a testament to that for me. I adore those two. And maybe I'm thinking too deeply into this, but I wonder how it felt as all these songs were kind of pouring out of you when you thought about what to include, what order to put them on. Because from the battle cry of This Is War all the way through to that closing title track, was it a cognitive exercise? Was it something you had to think about? Or was it more of a gut feeling that you trusted in when deciding what songs best represented what you were trying to capture here in 2022 on this record?
Yeah. I think, it's funny with Alter Bridge, I think people be surprised at the fact that we don't necessarily overthink a lot in terms of the general concept beforehand. A lot of times we'll just kind of lay it all out there, and then once we have all of the parts of the equation, then, for example, like sequencing a record, you've got your songs and then you put it together, and we definitely put a lot into that. There's no doubt about it. But it's not like we go into a record like, well, it would be really great if we started like this, and then we went down into this valley, and it was about this, and it was about this. It's always just kind of like, it's very, we're in the moment, very present. And so the universe is essentially dictating where that's going to go. But once it's dropped all that on you, and you have to be aware of, well, how are you going to present that? We spend time trying to chisel away at that. And yeah, our album song orders are important, but it's tricky in this day and age because things have changed so much. People don't necessarily have time. They say that a lot of times people don't even listen past the seventh song anymore because there's so much. Yeah, they've, like, if you look at the kind of the analytics and all that, which, as somebody who grew up listening to albums, that's kind of, it's hard to
fair.
It's hard to right, but yet we still do it because I guess that's what we know, and hopefully people like yourselves will still take the time to listen to the whole thing. And so we're doing it for folks like you who are going to listen to the whole body of work, and we're not just going to, okay, well, after the seventh song, screw it, it's just here's a kazoo solo.
Well, I can fully, and truthfully and wholeheartedly tell you that I do. And like I said there, like, two of my favorite tracks are Holiday and Fable from the Silent Sun, and for anybody who's not aware, that the second song I mentioned there, that's kind of pushing 9 minutes, right? towards the end. Yeah. But for me, and especially when you're talking about that ever diminishing attention span, but for me, that song musically is interesting and engaging enough that I'm with it the whole way, and the lyric has an honesty to it that I want to follow to the bitter end. But as someone who is clearly conscious of the way people listen to records and how long they'll listen to records, putting a song of that time frame in, was that something you wrestled with, or was that something that was like, no, we're going to include this, we like how it sounds?
Yeah. I think well, because we're kind of lucky that we have a fan base who expects a certain amount of that. They're really, I guess in a lot of ways, they're used to it because we've been doing it since Blackbird, where we have, there are these moments on the record, these epics, and if they're not there, they're probably not going to be cool with that. So try and keep that in mind. But yeah, Fable of the Silent Sun was definitely, that took a long time to put together. So it makes us happy to hear that you like it, because sometimes those songs that you really hone in on and you really put 1,000% into, and you tend to overthink, sometimes they fall on their face, and sometimes you're like, oh, I had a producer once, Peter Collins. He was a great producer. That's where I met Elvis. Elvis was his engineer. Nickel Basket, and he did the second Mayfield 4 record. Peter did, and Peter's thing was, if you spend too much time worrying about a certain part or a song or an arrangement, he'd be like, well, he'd let you go for a while, and then he'd just be like, you've lost the plot. and I love that, and Elvis and I frequently bring that up. You've lost the plot, but it's nice to hear that we didn't lose the plot on those songs.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination. And just as a side note, Elvis has done a wonderful job on this once again. It sounds incredible. But I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. But I wanted to touch base on what you kind of said at the very top of the interview about that kind of powering down aspect. Because my reverence for you as a musician only deepened when I kind of came to understand how you step into, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but 3 different realms, 3 different processes of writing when you shift projects. Even just the time that must demand of you alone is quite a thought. But I remember recently listening to Dave Grohl, who is also someone like yourself that is quite chameleonic in the way he approaches the multiple projects he's involved with. But he spoke of a moment that made me laugh, because he talked about he was sitting on his couch, became aware of his body sinking into it, and closed his eyes for 5 minutes, at which point he freaked out. He was like, what's this thing I'm feeling? And then he realized, oh, I'm relaxing. And he didn't know what to do with that. It was almost alien to him.
Right.
And I wonder for you, as someone who has as much as you do, as frequently as you do, does his experience resonate with you upon hearing it? Do you find that reaching out and touching base with some small modicum of relaxing meditation, whatever it might be, is that something you've been able to maintain, and what level of importance does that hold in your life?
Wow. I mean, it's really interesting that you're asking me this question right now, because that's really what I've been chasing down for weeks since I've been home. That's been my kind of assignment. It's really, this is the universe doing its thing. It's fascinating.
Love it.
And to hear that Dave had that moment, that's really inspiring and wonderful to hear. Because and I don't say this proudly, I'm a workaholic. That's my drug of choice, right? Some people drink, some people do actual substances. I work, and it's all I've known for a very long time. And I realized that that's wonderful, and it's very fulfilling. It's been very fulfilling. But I also realized, I brought this up earlier, I feel like there's a final frontier that I still have not conquered, and that is my mind. And that is the ability to be a realized being, and that's not to get too, hippy dippy, but that's a lot harder than it sounds, and I'm going to continue chasing that down until I hopefully one day I'll get it figured out. But I can tell you that it's quite a journey, man. It really is, and it's really, I feel like it's helping me evolve a lot as a human being. I started that quest. You started to hear, I think, nuggets of it with Walk the Sky, about this awareness and this kind of epiphany that I was starting to have. And now, and I kind of put that aside for a while, especially when the world got really crazy, and then I was diverted and kind of sucked down the rabbit hole of everything that was happening on the planet and the world. Then I realized, wait a minute here, this is taking me away from the journey I need to be on right now, which is myself. So yeah, I'm still on that quest, and I've been spending a lot of time just being, not allowing myself to pick up the guitar. And it used to be the guitar was in my hand at all times, always creating, always writing. But I feel like to benefit the next time I do go down that road and write another record, I feel like I need to chase down this other element that I need to figure out internally. And it's just fascinating that you came across that the universe was like, hey, ask him this question. I find that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's because I would be much the same. Like it's nearly midnight here in Dublin, and I'm still here, right? But I heard that story from Dave, and I remember talking to Matt Hafey of Trivium, who said that in order to combat his anxiety, he has his day mapped out from top to bottom. So when I look at your projects and I look at how many things are even just coming my way in my email with your name on it, I'm like, that's a busy dude, you know? So does he touch base? Does he do that? And I feel really humbled and privileged that you were comfortable enough to share that with me. Thank you so much.
Oh, you know what? My pleasure, and it's always great talking with you. You ask great questions, very insightful, and it makes it easy for me. Thank you.
That's no greater compliment, man. And you know, it's never short of anything but pleasure to hang out with you and talk life, love, and the universe. You know, you're someone who's carved your own path and found your own way, and I'm always very, very grateful to be able to sit down with you and share and learn more about that journey. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and I wish you, Azrael, Mozart, and everyone in your camp nothing but the best for the rest of the year and beyond, my friend. And I hope when you get here to Dublin in December, we can do it again, brother.
That would be great, Carl. Yeah. Always a pleasure.
All right. Take it easy, my friend. I shall catch you real soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye.